Building citizen scale e governance applications in a country like India is a massive feat. There is one organization which is enabling that with the help of AWS, Digital India Corporation. DIC is actively involved in building citizen facing applications such as DigiLocker, CoWIN, UMANG, and Poshan Tracker that transform e governance service delivery at scale. In this session, learn about the challenges of building large-scale e-governance application and how AWS Cloud Services enable Digital India Corporation to achieve their mission. May I now call upon stage Mr. Amit Sawant, Enterprise Solution Architect, Public Sector, AWS, to kindly facilitate the session and welcome our panel members.
Thank you, Sonali. And with that, I'd also like to call our panel members today, Mr. Debabrat Nayak, Amit Jain, and Alan Halakmi. Gentlemen, please take a seat. Thank you everyone for being here. So we'll just begin with a quick round of introduction. I'll introduce the August panel members quickly. On my left first is Mr. Debabrat Nayak. Mr. Debabrat Nayak is the Chief Technology Officer of Digital India Corporation, and he's also the Director of National E-Governance Division. He has over 27 years of experience in the industry designing transformational e-governance applications. He actually has a reputation of a go-to person for solving any scalability related problems in e-governance applications, and very notably he has also been named as the change maker of the country for his contribution to CoWIN by the Outlook magazine. So welcome, Mr. Nayak. Next we have Mr. Amit Jain. Amit Jain is the Additional Director, National E-Governance Division in Digital India Corporation, which is associated with Ministry of Electronics and IT. Amit also has a rich international experience building mission critical projects, but more prominently for last 10 years, he's working with Ministry of Electronics and IT on building more transformational products like DigiLocker, API Setu, UMANG. So this is going to be an interesting talk. Welcome, Amit. And last but not least, we have Alan Halakmi. Alan Halakmi is Director of Solutions Architecture for Worldwide Public Sector here in Amazon Web Services. Alan's primary responsibility is to enable customers, public sector customers, adopt cloud technology. And in that capacity, he has been very closely involved in some of the national scale products or applications of DIC that we are going to talk about. So he has been from the AWS side, witnessed and supported all these initiatives. So welcome, Alan. So I'll begin with you, Mr. Nayak. So when we talk about citizen scale applications, CoWIN is very fresh in everyone's mind. And I know you have been a key contributor, a significant contributor in the development of CoWIN. So tell us about the CoWIN story. And when you stand today and look back at the journey of the CoWIN, what do you think are the specific advantages of building CoWIN over cloud?
Thanks, Amit. First, I think Amit is also a co-builder with me building the CoWIN. I think he's the other side, but I think I'm most thankful to him also. He's the core team member inside the CoWIN and also the DigiLocker. Yes, as a part of the challenge, we also, all of us working together, all three actually in the same team. Yes, as a part of CoWIN and we look at the DigiLocker, there are the two sides of the story that I will definitely describe as a part of how the challenge of the DigiLocker and the on-premise and the making CoWIN and building it on the AWS first. So definitely I will say that as a technology person for the last 27 years, I always say that if you are building a technology and you say some developers, I always look at them as a part, okay, we are using MongoDB, we are using MySQL open source, we are doing some open source products generally. They always feel proud about that. Okay, we are using Redis, we are saying, but if you look at some other way, when we build the CoWIN as a part of it could have been, we are using the open source in the AWS, but looking at the AWS, the providing the managed services and when we try to develop and we got from the day one, we get inside of the lots of things what we generally use, but we don't know what is the inside of that, why this program is not working, why the Dynamo, we are using as a Dynamo as a part of the CoWIN, but we never know that as a part of most of the developers generally think, okay, I am using MongoDB, I will use the Dynamo, but the advantage as a part of developing over AWS, using their components of the managed services. I think that is the one of the great knowledge I have for the last 27 years, and that I can say that the last 2 years, I generally that learnings of using some technology, but when you are looking at over a cloud, when you are getting much more greater insights, and that you are not focusing on the technology rather than focusing on the business. So CoWIN is the great use case. I just say that we always focus on the business, not that okay, the Dynamo will fail, or MySQL will fail, or Redis will fail. We never think about in that way. So that is the greatest knowledge, I must say, using the AWS, the period and the timeline. And I think that because we succeed, because we use all the services from the managed services from the AWS, and the database we choose. That time in the DynamoDB, lots of people told me, okay, why not you are going the MongoDB, MySQL, those have been proven as a part. But the discussion with particularly with my AWS engineering team working with that time, I am very clear about that. This is the right choice you have taken as a part. Let it be, it will scale automatically, rather than we focus on the traditional way of taking the product what has been proven, but rather than we looked at what is that way the new technology that are being provided. So that is the game changer for all of the whole CoWIN approach as a part of developing over the DynamoDB.
Yeah, perfect. And I think what I personally find amazing is CoWIN, when we started, it was a response to an emergency. We never had that luxury of time, and we didn't have room for failure. And I think how quickly it was built using the cloud technology, I think that is something that is amazing about CoWIN. Alan, I want to turn to you, and you have seen the development of CoWIN very, very closely. You have been watching this. Apart from the breadth and depth of services of Amazon Web Services, there is a lot of support ecosystem that goes along with it. Can you tell us about how AWS helped DIC and the government build CoWIN from your perspective?
Sure. I think, well, maybe I'll start from saying, Amazon as a culture is very customer obsessed. It's part of our culture. And so for every customer, for every partner, the starting point for us is, what do we need to do to help the customer, help the partner to be successful? It's very much baked into our DNA in the way that we operate. But when we look at CoWIN, for example, just starting from a leadership perspective, we had engagement, awareness, advocacy throughout the organization. When we're talking about citizen scale services, we really want to make sure, just at a fundamental level, everybody in the internal organization is clear on what the customer mission is, the partners that are involved, how we help them succeed, and that we're all aligned on driving that progress, removing blockers, and helping to accelerate the outcomes. And so, even for myself, I have a worldwide responsibility, but I was on daily stand-up calls with our in-country team here in India to make sure that DIC, that the partners involved, and that the internal AWS different support partners, and I'll talk about those in a moment, were all able to move forward, and any blockers were removed. Now, specifically to what that ecosystem looks like, or what that community of support looks like, obviously we have solutions architects that are very involved in the architecture and really making sure that we have customers going down a path of best practices. And we leverage well-architected framework reviews across 6 pillars that include operational excellence and security, reliability, performance efficiency, cost optimization, sustainability, kind of key questions that we want to answer to make sure that we're delivering the right architectures in partnership with the customers and with the partners to drive the mission. And then we have enterprise support. When we get to the actual operation, the enterprise support team is amazing. They are world-class, and they'll typically engage on very large programs like this in what we call an operational readiness review. And so we'll work with the customer and the partner, solutions architecture and support. We all work together to go through a series of preparatory activity, load testing, answering basic questions like, do we have observability? How quickly will we be able to isolate sources of issue in the system? Where are going to be the performance envelope, kind of key performance indicators that indicate we're getting to a capacity or a performance point that we need to take action? During the event, most customers at scale, and we certainly did it with CoWIN, use what we call infrastructure event management, which is something that our enterprise support team provides. And they have kind of all kind of critical components of AWS kind of standing by. They're on the phone with the customers and partners, making sure that as an application or a workload goes live, we have the ability to react in real time and drive quick escalation, typically resolving things that come up before they're observed by the end users. And so that's obviously a very important part of the relationship that we have and the capabilities that we provide. And the last thing that I would talk about is security. And so when we think about workloads like CoWIN, there are really two things that you have to get right. You have to get right security and operational performance. The system has to be secure and it has to be running reliably. And so I talked a little bit about kind of operational performance, but the security portion is equally important. And so oftentimes, as was the case with CoWIN, we'll engage either professional services or a security competency partner from the Amazon Partner Network to do an assessment, right? We want to make sure that we understand the posture of the system, and we're making every effort to secure it in every way that is possible from a security in depth perspective, and that we have alerting and capabilities to identify, protect, defend, respond, and recover as different types of security things come up. So, we obviously had a lot of different players engaged, and through the partnerships of these organizations, really working in lockstep with a consistent vision of what the execution, the mission was. We were able to drive consistency, and obviously the outcome speaks for itself. We were very fortunate to be partnered with GIC in this endeavor, and quite grateful for the outcome that it's delivered to the citizens of India.
No, that's great. I mean, I'm just amazed to see, as we said, it's not just the breadth and depth of services, but the underlying principle is not customer-vendor relationship. It's a partnership, first of all. And second thing, how well these programs are thought through, that there is a separate program for each of the different engagement about event readiness, security, load testing, actually scaling the system, subject matter expert support that you talked about. So that's great. Amit, I'm going to turn to you. You have been involved in another transformational project, DigiLocker, which is, again, we heard in the keynote today that it's paving the way in the paperless service governance domain. You have been involved in DigiLocker right from its inception. I remember you were involved in writing the technical specification, and now the exponential growth that we have seen it today. You recently moved to cloud. So what do you think are the specific advantages? How do you highlight the specific advantages of moving to the cloud for DigiLocker?
Thanks, Amit. Good afternoon. So I'll answer this in two sections. First, digital transformation, or the DigiLocker transformation. We've had many phases of transformation within DigiLocker. We started with pure digitization, get access to as many digital documents as possible. So for the first 2 years, all we did was collect documents. Then came the stage where we now move away from digitization to digitalization, where we can start increasing the number of transactions that take place around those documents. So once we had a critical mass, we had about 50 million users, we had about 500 million documents, we started focusing on that. And how we did that was we went to central ministries and various regulators to start incorporating DigiLocker as part of their process flows. So that was the digitalization stage of DigiLocker. And as it happens that in 2019, we started moving from digitalization to digital transformation. We wanted to become part of health ecosystem. We wanted to become part of financial ecosystem. We wanted to become part of education ecosystem. And basically, so that is the journey that DigiLocker was taking, but actually it started creating challenges for us. I mean, our system admin team was on a daily basis just worried about uptimes and service availability. And it wasn't giving us a lot of time and opportunity to actually do upgrades to the system, to innovate within the platform. So when we moved to AWS, I think one of my first feelings was that we were earlier in trenches, we were fighting wars, we were looking challenges everywhere we saw. The moment we moved to cloud, we actually started seeing opportunities where we had challenges. Our system admin team can now move away from daily maintenance tasks and provide us a service that gives us time and energy to innovate. Now, I'll give you certain examples. We have been working very closely with the National Health Authority. We actually are one of their key partners in implementing health locker services. We are talking to RBI to become an FIU, as in financial information user and financial information provider, as part of account aggregator ecosystem. We have seen, so DigiLocker actually has also been a fountainhead of many other projects. I mean, today our CEO was here and he actually showed 15 applications that Digital India is actually operating right now. 5 of those came out of DigiLocker stable. I mean, if I can say that, Nayak ji is here. API Setu, which is an API gateway to to transact data and services across public and private sectors through linkages with API, came out of a gateway that DigiLocker has implemented. NAD and ABC came out of a repository that DigiLocker had implemented in 2015, where we wanted to give opportunities to organizations like high school boards or universities to come and host and digitize their academic records. So all of these went on to become a product in themselves. And I think one of the reasons we were able to create that value addition is primarily because of the freedom that cloud gave us. So we were able to move our workloads from on-prem data center to cloud data center. We did not have to worry about renewals of AMC contracts. We did not have to worry about hardware failures. All we had to worry about, and basically why we were not able to do that is because AWS team was taking care of that. We knew that we had a partner who will manage that part of our requirements, and our team, our development team, our onboarding team, people who go and talk to the partners can focus on bringing new services, bringing new documents. We can now go to a bank. In fact, we went to Mumbai about a couple of months ago, and we went to the bank and we told us, what do you want from us? Rather than going and collecting documents from from everywhere, every part of the country, we started targeting specific use cases and say, okay, this is something that you want. This will help you provide better financial services to your customers. We can now focus on that. Similarly, in education sector, ABC, I mean, we were talking about academic bank of credits where students moving from one university to the other, they can transfer their credits from one university to the other. So that is a novel concept in India. But we were able to implement it on a very fast track time because of the freedom that cloud gave us. So I think it has been a very beneficial relationship for us, and we are actually grateful that we can now focus on something that is that is a passion for us, which is bringing governance transformation, which is bringing paperless governance in the country, and not having to worry about whether my database is replicating across my 2 nodes or not, or whether my containers that I'm managing will support me when the real rush comes. So we don't have to worry about that. So I think that is a great relief for us.
Absolutely. I think this is a very apt example of how cloud helps organization focus on the core business problems or the problems of their users rather than focusing on the day-to-day activities where they don't have actual time planned or budgeted for all these activities.
So we can stick to our mandate rather than
absolutely, absolutely, and that's great to know. So we just talked about CoWIN and DigiLocker. These are the 2 important initiatives. But I know, Mr. Nayak, in DIC, you're working on other transformational services too in other areas. So can you throw some light for us on those areas, as well as how do you think the cloud will help or is helping you in other transformational services too?
Actually, that the Digital India Corporation, we are looking at 3 sectors primarily: education, health and agriculture. Then besides DigiLocker, UMANG, we are heading as a part. UMANG, all of you know, it is the government service marketplace. And DigiLocker is coming as your digital wallets. On the authentication side, we launched National Single Sign-On. That is what we say that, okay, your authentication to a single systems, the behind that very closely integrated with the DigiLocker. Then besides that, we are having a service marketplace. What the transformation as a part of we are looking at the inside government is, yes, it's the seamless services for the citizens. So one aspect we are looking at the DigiLocker, UMANG, API Setu and authentication mechanism and also repository services. The other side also we are doing, there are the 2 projects. What are the Academic Bank of Credits, that is also the part of the DigiLocker. We separating out from the DigiLocker to build a very core educational sector product in respect to your digital certificates, then security of the certificate through blockchain, then Academic Bank of Credit top of it as a part. Then another the large project after CoWIN, it started inside that time only. It is called the Poshan Tracker. It is connected to 13 lakh Anganwadi centers. and 13 crore beneficiaries, health, height, weight. We are taking the measurement to look at the largest nutrition government beneficiary program is going on. So looking at the scope of the Poshan Tracker, actually, it is larger than the CoWIN. I did CoWIN, but I think the Poshan Tracker is one of the largest program. If we after some time, it is running on as a part of the things. Every day we are being around 20-30 GB of data we are being creating every day, because every day I think how many records I think we are creating? I think almost 10 crores records. It is more than 10 times of the CoWIN records we are creating there. All right. So yes, as a part of learning, I think I will say that Poshan Tracker was on-premise. Recently, the challenge we are having, the so many data points are created inside the Poshan Tracker. We moved to the AWS and we took a challenge. I think that is what the January 25th.
Right.
We took a challenge. Let it move it to cloud. Otherwise, you can't scale. Then we moved to cloud. Then we say that okay, now what is the how to run it? Actually, that time when you moved, it was almost a standstill of the whole application. It was almost the containers were being into not scaled down because you don't have the enough resources. The database was not scaled up. But even if I know that we put around 6-8 nodes inside that also could not scale. So January 25th, we took a decision, and I think 4 days, almost I think 4 days to sync the whole database to the AWS. And after that, we now making it cloudify in the sense that, okay, we established that is the data warehouse person, right? Then lot more analytics and dashboards we came up. Now we are looking at to the generation of the data, what is happening, that is still in the lift shift method in the MySQL in the virtual machines. We are now trying to go to the managed services, and also are thinking to move into the DynamoDB another 2 weeks or 3 weeks down the time. I think that the point is again at the part of DIC that what we are trying to do as a part of cloud is yes, the earlier 5 years versus last 1 year almost, right? So journey is more, I think as a CTO I may say 5 years most probably I may say that that every time that whole projects inside me. Now at least I am having some sound slips right now.
So that's a great compliment, I would say, and I think it's very important the way you brought out. I mean, it's one thing to stitch together open source components, but it's another thing to actually scale it to population. I mean, India scale population, and it takes a lot of effort and experimentation to get to that. I mean, it's not that it's impossible, but I think the question is, can you spend that time more effectively on something else, on solving citizen problems? I think it's the same message that is coming
No,
out.
I think I'm looking at it in a two way. When we are being a technology person, I think we always say that in the last year, we say as a developer, we are proud of using open source. We are talking about that, okay, we use Mongo, we use MySQL, whatever they say we say. But when it is fine that you use something open source, but our learnings from the open source to a cloud, and AWS is building the product upon the open source. I think that is a deadly combination. You use open source, but open source inside use inside a cloud, and the cloud gives the flexibility to scale. So that is where that you are not more focused on the you are putting a MongoDB, and for the last 5 years we are being struggling into the MongoDB database to our own engineer teams to those that are developing the whole things, and also they are looking at the technology problems. So that is the biggest problem generally. I feel whole my 7 years part of building the product, putting it on premise, and lots of time we being into this is the problem in the database, that is the problem in the database, this is the that cluster file system is not working. So you are solving something rather than you are not focusing to solve the problem of the citizens. So rather than that, you looked at in some way, you build product what is available on the clouds, and you try first to solve the citizens problem. Services availability should be there anytime, every time. Any citizen should not say that they got the 404 or 501 page.
Right. So that's great the way you put it. Alan, you have been watching these developments in DIC very, very closely. How do you see these initiatives in DIC in global context?
Yeah, from a global context, I think I'd put it into 3 categories. expectations, capabilities in sharing. So if I start from an expectations perspective, with COVID, we saw governments compelled to move very quickly and in many cases executing on things that had been talked about for the prior number of years, but suddenly executed in weeks, right? And there's on the other side of that, on the citizen side of that, the citizens saw how fast government can move. The citizens saw how innovative, creative, fast-paced government could be. And just to give you kind of a flavor for it or a sense, there was a head of government in one of the countries in which we operate, and that head of government made a commitment on national television that a new benefit would be made available to the citizens the following day. And so we worked with the Department of Government there that said, well, we have 24 hours to make this happen. And in about 5 hours, we stood up with that Department of Government a contact center using Amazon Connect, which is our omni-channel contact center in the cloud. And we trained agents, and 5 hours later, the following morning, there were people able to deliver government benefit services in a completely new capability, right? And so there was kind of, we all saw government move quickly. And so another example is obviously with high performance computing and healthcare, significant advances, significant headway in a very short amount of time. And so now we have a situation where citizens expect innovation, fast-paced government, and government now has to continue to deliver that. I think the days of we'll get to it, I don't think that, I think citizens are going to demand change because they've seen what government can do. So that's kind of the expectations. Around capability, these population scale systems, CoWIN's a great example. And I should just footnote that the work that is being done in India across a whole landscape of citizen scale applications is really cutting edge and inspiring, right? So in many ways, the rest of the world is looking at what is happening in India for pointers on how to drive citizen scale capabilities. But one of the trends that I see, which intersects here, and even part of the conversation we just had, is this notion of consent-mediated access to personal information. This notion that I have a set of digital information about me that I have the ability to consent to share with entities of government or with healthcare providers or whatever the case is. And you see the outlines of that in DigiLocker as an example, right? That is something that I see in great demand, and we're seeing it happen. And again, I think a lot of governments around the world are looking to see how India progresses in its execution because it's a difficult problem. The other thing that I would say is a very clear trend is what I would call integrated or simplified citizen services. So the clear example in India is UMANG, right? So the Unified Mobile Application for New Age Governance, where citizens get this integrated single point of access to government. They don't have to go to different portals. They don't have to move data between different places. They have this consistent end user experience where government seems to be one entity to them, even though behind the scenes it may be multiple entities, multiple databases, and so forth. Last week I was in Australia and I met with Service New South Wales, which is doing a similar thing. Single access point for multiple entities of government to simplify the constituent experience. They've even changed their nomenclature. They call it customers, right? And so this notion of integrated, simplified government, I think is a very clear trend. And the last is this notion of sharing. One of the things that I love about public sector, it's very much been a calling for me in my professional career, is that public sector customers make differences in people's lives. They really do. And the nature of public sector is that we all want that outcome, and so data is shared. Methodologies are shared, technology is shared. And so if you go back to July, the National Health Authority here in India said, look, CoWIN has delivered a lot of benefit to India, and if there are other countries that would benefit from it, we're happy to share, right? And so this kind of technology sharing is something that we see as a very clear trend across government. And for our part, whether it's CoWIN or in general tracing apps, we're seeing a lot of performance dashboards, which is a conversation we had just a couple of days ago, being transparent with the citizens about what government is doing and at what efficiency and what throughput and such. These capabilities are being shared, and for Amazon's part, we're trying to help government package and curate that for sharing. And so we have Amazon's or AWS Open Government Solutions, which is a portal where governments can go and get access to other artifacts and technologies that other governments have developed that can help them, if you will, drive time to mission, drive time to citizen outcomes. And so I would say those are probably the three big trends. And there's a lot more to be done, I think, globally, but a lot of that sharing is helping to move forward the progress quite quickly.
No, that's good. And I think one thing that I really think is probably unique about India is how, and it even came up in the keynote address of the DIC Corporation CEO, how it uses technology in all these initiatives with the core principle of the citizen enablement. I think that's one strong guiding star or guiding principle, and I think that is amazing. So Amit, I think you are the best person in the room to acknowledge that the launch of these population scale citizen facing application comes with a lot of challenges. I mean, they have a lot of visibility, and almost certainly than not, some things or the other go wrong. So, so if you look back from your experience, what is one challenging thing that you can think of, and can you highlight how cloud had helped you mitigate some risks or solve those challenges?
Yeah, thanks. So one thing, when we build, especially in public sector, we build for 1/6 of humanity. I think out of every 16 people on this planet, there is an Indian looking for a service. So when we are building for that kind of a scale. And I'll give you a couple of recent examples. July itself, right? On 4th of July, one of DigiLocker byproduct, another one of the byproduct, which is a national single sign-on service, Meri Pehchan was launched. And this was launched in Gandhinagar, it's a state in Western India, and the entire team was placed on site at Gandhinagar. And we were expecting a lot of surge in traffic that day. But one thing I wasn't worried about, and a lot of people knew that, is that our platform will not respond to that surge in traffic. And it didn't happen. I mean, we did not get one call that, our support team guys didn't tell us that service was out or people were not able to access their single sign-on accounts. And our traffic was, although it wasn't, I'll give you another example, which is on a completely different scale. Our traffic was almost 3 times our normal traffic, and we didn't have to do anything. We whatever we did, we planned 2 days ahead, and we stuck to that plan. Thankfully, we did not have to move to plan B. And this was a cloud native application, so we did not have to worry about that. The second example, and I'm sure Amit, you would also experienced it, is the high school results, the 12th class results for the Central Education Board. And I call it our Black Friday sale. I mean, the day after Thanksgiving sale, where you get 20 days worth of traffic that you would get on your platform in 2 hours. I mean, students who are so eager, and this is a big deal in India, right? 12th class results, where will they go to colleges? What will happen to their life? It's almost like a life and death, query in front of students. So they are eagerly awaiting what happened. And they all come and, start accessing their platform. I mean, within half an hour, we get almost 1 million hits on our platform. And of course, we had challenges even this year, but that was primarily for different reasons. But one challenge we did not have was students coming in and accessing their DigiLocker accounts. We had actually migrated our account access, our user management payload onto cloud in December of last year. Barring a few configuration tweaks, so that was also a learning for us that certain configurations still have to be managed. Once we made those tweaks, at least that area of our application functionality, we did not have to worry about. And we were, from that point of view, we were able to satisfy that that horde that came to our platform that day. I think, so it was a great discovery for us.
I'm sure you have a lot of stories to share, Amit, and we would love to hear all of this. I think in the interest of time, we can maybe take a couple of questions from the audience. Yes, please. Can we have the mic? I would just request if you can state your name and the organization that you represent. That would be great.
Hi, my name is Rajesh Malapati. I'm actually working for an organization called Theobald Software. This is based in Germany. Most of the questions are actually answered by Mr. Jain and Nayak. I have one question to Mr. Halalchmi. Since you have been working with the customer, that is the Digital India Corporation, so how do you feel like maybe the pressure that the customer is giving you? Because I know like how the public sector may have the pressure, because we are talking about the data of 1.35 billion population, and then all the apps or all the projects that you have executed in Digital India Corporation are basically having too much of data. So what was the challenge, at least from the customer perspective, not executing the project as such, but how do you dealt with the customer itself, with the pressure of time or maybe with everything? That's it, thank you.
Let me answer first. Now, if you look at that, this light, the water, these are all life, right? If say that is the service provider and you are being depending upon them for your electricity, water and gas, right? It is the necessity. If you ask me the same question that I am the technology person, that means I will say today that cloud is again the same necessity for us if you want to scale. Rather than they require us, we require them. So 2 days back, my finance put a question why it was a 20 lakhs bills. Now this month, 30 lakhs bill. So that is now I have to write down. There is lots of parameters to answer. I told him if this electricity, whether it's the more bills, do you cut up, want to not to pay their bills? If water having the more bills, do you raise any questions? If the gas having the more bill, do you ask them why this is my more bill? So you look at the bills and you are paying it rightly, right? That is, if you look at the same way, cloud is a platform. You go, you pay, you use, right? So what they are providing us right now, because I am coming from a 27 years experience, or 7 years I put it, DigiLocker, UMANG, API, every big platform in the country I build it. But point again is, CoWIN is the eye-opening for all the governments. If anybody in the whole house say, can we build the CoWIN without a cloud? Anybody, just anybody from this house say, okay, we could have built CoWIN on premises.
In such a short time.
Whatever the time, I'm giving you all time. I'm giving you 1 year time, 2 years time, 3 years time. Can you build the CoWIN on premises today? Frankly speaking, nobody. I came from the same platform, building the DigiLocker, use all the open source, Gloucester, MongoDB, whatever the technology we use. But 7 years back, building CoWIN, I would say, nobody will build the CoWIN on premises, on the demand, that time, right? Now to you.
So I'll give maybe a different, slightly different view to the question about the pressure and the interaction and how you make that work. What I would just say is Amazon operates in a set of leadership principles, and one of them is earns trust. And we earn trust with customers when we deliver a secure platform. We earn trust with customers when we have operational excellence and we can scale, we can provide the scalability that's needed to deliver citizen scale services. We also earn trust in the way that we partner with our customers and we behave as though we are members of that customer's team. It's not AWS and the customer, it's not AWS and DIC. It's one team, one mission trying to drive outcomes for citizens. And so that's very much the mindset that we have. So we're all trying to get to the same outcome. And again, in Amazon culture piece, it's a very blameless culture. We want to make sure that the customer and the citizens, in this case of India, are successful. We're talking about lives, right? So what's important to us is what's important to them. And in that sense, it's very easy. I don't feel the pressure of, are we going to be able to A, B, or C? We're going to. It's not a question of if, it's an imperative. We are going to deliver this together. And we did it with DIC. We have other examples where we delivered in 8 days capabilities for governments around the world. And we do it from the position of, we are not AWS, a separate company. We are an integrated partner with our customers to deliver these outcomes as imperatives. And it's that simple for us.
Well, I think we are just running out of time. Maybe we can take the question offline after this. We are just very, very short of time. So I'll just like to wrap up. First of all, I think we saw different perspectives. I mean, we have three different individuals. We talked about CoWIN and how we saw the CoWIN story starting today. We talked about DigiLocker and its evolution and how its migration to cloud has made changes. We looked at Alan's perspective about what these things mean in the global perspective. And I think each of those perspectives was very, very unique and very, very enlightening. I would like to thank all the respected panel members for giving us this insight and sharing your stories. And thanks to all of you for joining us here today. Thank you and you have a nice day.
I'll thank you, Amit, to build he's the founder of the CoWIN also. He was the main building block, building the CoWIN as well as the DigiLocker and that core components. So we must thankful to Amit.
You're very
he's
modest.
the opposite way. He's
You're
asking the
very
question.
modest, sir.
He's asking the question, but he's the core engineer who built that core registration, APIs and other things. He is the core engineer, built all the DigiLocker mobile app and API Setu. And he's the core engineer who started the whole DigiLocker journey with us. So he was a DigiLocker man and still with the DigiLocker man. Though the only change is the
Change of hat.
only change of hat, nothing else. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Amit, and all our panelists for sharing your anecdotes from the CoWIN story. Great to hear that.